Okay, so welcome everyone for another live episode of Tough Talks Live. I am the host, Kristine, Lara, Sebastian, and I am so happy to be here again this week. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week. I hope that you've been productive. I hope that the Lord has been front and center in your life, and yeah, we're starting again. There's a lot. As I said to you guys in every week, that every week there's always a lot going on. I'm sure in your lives as well. There has to be. And when you're truly walking with the Lord, you will find that time. It's weird. It's an interesting thing that I'm discovering, is that time really just seems to be moving. Maybe depending on where we are or what's going on, but it just seems to be moving and just moving and the Lord is certainly moving swiftly and rapidly as well. But anyways, I again, how is everyone? I hope everyone is great. I hope, like I said, that you've had a wonderful week that's been filled with love and revelation and insight, and that you're excited about your life. At the end of the day, we really it's coming back into the truth, into the fold, in the places where we can, I guess just where we can truly be excited about this life. And there's a lot about life to be excited for and with, and we really do discover that when we get into that alignment with the Lord, and we have that true walk with the Lord. So, Wow, there's, I'm just going to start off, as you guys know, I do apologize for a little bit of the late start here this morning. And I'm coming broadcasting, I've sort of shifted gears again. And I'm coming broadcasting live right in through the Tough Talks page. And we'll do this, I think I made a mistake. I think I made a mistake in coming in through the Rise, and I was coming in through the Rise and Shine, but you know what? I'm feeling in my spirit that it wasn't the right thing to do, and it wasn't the fair thing to do. So for those of you who have liked the page and who are, who've liked the page, that really was the message to tell me that you're supporting it. And so I'm going to come in direct through this page as it's said. So again, we talk about keeping our word. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to do that and just trust and trust the Lord, trust the Lord that this is the way to go. And then what I'll do is I'll just sort of do some editing, if there's some lags in time, and then be able to distribute it to the other pages and to the other people as well. So that is what it is. So there's a lot going on. Oh, so sorry. I don't know what's going on here. I love that song. That's that song, I Can Only Imagine. I Can Only Imagine. Such a beautiful song. I actually sang this song at a celebration of life event for a dear aunt of mine, very close friend of the family, not too long ago. And this song was just, it was the right song. It was the right song. So, as I mentioned, there's a number of items that I wanted to be talking about today that has come up in my spirit. A couple of them, I mean, there's a lot, as you know, with this program. It's like a 2-hour sort of stretch, which I will also be editing out certain pieces and snippets that will make it maybe a little bit easier to digest. But then there'll be a link that will direct people back to the full if you want to do that. So we're going to be talking today about things like narcissism, which is very important. And a lot of people look at narcissism from the place of a psychological or in that sort of discipline. But when we're looking at things through the realm of the spirit, we understand that there's more to it than that. There is no psychologist whatsoever that can help or impact somebody who is dealing with narcissism. They can certainly help people to understand what it is. They can help people, to understand how impossible it is on certain levels. But until you understand some of these things that are going on either in your life or in the life of people that you know, this could be people in the workplace, it could be your family, it could be a spouse. Heaven forbid that it's you. Believe me when I say that. But there are things that you can look for, and there are things that you need to understand that unfortunately the psychological department of things will never be able to give you proper and full understanding of. So I'm going to be approaching this topic because I have studied it, I have researched it, I do have a great level of understanding of it, as well as some revelation sort of knowledge around it. I'm not sure how deep I'm going to go into it, but I'm just going to allow the Holy Spirit to lead me. But we need to understand that everything that we're seeing in the natural realm, there's something that is operating in the spiritual realm, and until our eyes are attuned to that, we're only going to see what we've been trained to see. So until our eyes are attuned to see in the spiritual, to understand it, we're only going to be limited to be able to see just what's natural, or what certain disciplines, in psychology might have taught us. So a lot of the times, a lot of the things that we're experiencing, the framework with which we're understanding it is being understood through a certain discipline or a certain study that perhaps the educational institution has given to us, or the medical institution has given to us. But there's another framework that, unless we understand things through that framework, we'll never be able to get free, or get healing, or get understanding to be able to get deliverance from. So it's very, very, very important that we go deeper. We go deeper. Those of you in the Christian community, and not all of you in the Christian community, I have to say this, have even an in-depth understanding of this. You may have a cursory knowledge. You may have some, which is great. You're better off than those who have no understanding at all. But I'm really appealing to anyone at this point who, and everyone, because this information is vital. It's vital for you to understand. And like I said, this message, it needs to be set out. Not everyone's going to hear it. Not everybody can hear it. Not everybody will have the appetite for it. Not everybody will be able to digest it, and that's okay. Maybe that's where you are, or they are at this particular time. But I am so grateful for things like Facebook. I'm so grateful for the technology when it's used in the right way, because it will be there. This will be recorded. This will be kept, so that if even you're not ready to hear it now, it will be available for you for when the Lord prepares your heart, for when you're ready, for when your will and your consent and when you're ready for it. It will be there. There's a lot. There's so much in this, and I'm just so grateful to the Lord. I'm just so grateful, like that the Lord has commissioned me at this particular time, at a time such as this. We recognize that verse from Esther, at a time such as this. I am so grateful to be commissioned for this time in this particular space to be doing what I'm doing, and I understand why. It's connected to purpose. Anything that you're doing, when it's connected to purpose, you are just doing it, regardless of what the response may be or isn't, or it doesn't matter. You just know that it's tied to purpose and it must be done. because the Lord doesn't do anything in vain, and he's not going to send you anywhere in vain, and he's not going to ask of you or require of you things that are in vain. So, okay, so we'll just continue going. So I'm gonna talk, like I said, I'm gonna talk about narcissism. I'm getting a sense that I really have to approach this with some form of trepidation, some form of, I hope that's the right word, but just cautiously, because it's the first time that I'm talking about it. I have had, I've had my fair share of exposure to I'm gonna cloak it with narcissism, because that is a much more widely accepted and understood term in society, and people are more comfortable hearing that, as was I before I began to study spiritual warfare. And you begin to understand that the narcissist is just a fancy name for a demon, for demonic influence. And okay, so that's where I'm going. That's where I am. That's where we are. That's what we're talking about. So we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. For me, I'm just going by the leading. So sometimes when I'm doing that, understand it's very personal to me. So it requires me to have to go into some places myself, some personal sort of archives of things, and ask the Lord to sort of give me some knowledge, revelation, and also just to walk me through as well. But many of you, I'm sure, have been on the receiving end of narcissistic behavior, narcissistic influence of a narcissist. You might have been raised by one, or two. You might have siblings. You might have a boss or a coworker. You might be married to one. It's very, very, very serious, and it can be extremely debilitating. And you have to understand that the way the narcissist stays alive, the way the narcissist is able to move, is by concealing himself or herself, by having a mask, and this mask is about identity. So it creates an identity of one that is the opposite of its actual true nature. So it gives the illusion of someone who cares and feels all of the things that are godly characteristics, all of the sort of fruits of the Spirit. It studies and it learns what it has to look like in order to move through society or whatever the situation is, but its entire existence is dependent on being able to effectively conceal its true nature and its true identity. Hopefully now you can understand why I say, what's the difference between that and a demon? Nothing, really. That is what it is. It's a sick, twisted nature, and it uses that vessel, whatever host has given it access. It uses whoever will allow it to give it access. But and it's not pretty. And it does a lot of damage. I have been made to really do a lot of research and study of narcissism, of narcissists, in trying to understand it, because I have had a great deal of exposure to this throughout my life, on every single level. In fact, I was like a narcissist magnet, I believe. And I'll tell you something about who those narcissists are attracted to. They're attracted to those who are giving, to those who are naive to the truths of this world. I was highly naive. I just really looked at, I really just looked at, it's just love, love, love. We just love. And I just assumed, quite frankly, that everybody operated from that same space. And I had to have some rude awakenings myself that completely just nearly destroyed my life. I mean, like, without question. There's some schools of thought that these narcissists, that they are victims themselves. I'm careful with that now. I absolutely would have bought into that, and I did actually. They are victims themselves, but there also comes a point where they have given over to that. So yes, they're victims themselves, but I caution you to try to be the one to convert, change. It is spiritual, and that requires really the only way that someone can really be freed from this type of influence in their own lives is through I'm talking about the narcissist, is really through deliverance. And that is something that only Jesus can do, that only Christ can do. But that person has to submit themselves and really be willing to see themselves. And that's the difficult part with any person who has any form of it's like I'm really trying to be very selective with my words, so please bear with me here. I know I'll be talking about this a lot, but with this being the first time, it's not a comfortable discussion matter for me. I'm very, very the Lord has shown me a lot of things, so I understand it on a level, but we have to use a lot of wisdom, and in how that information is communicated. We have to be responsible, so but like I said, that really requires deliverance. I don't know of any psychologist, like I said, who has ever been able to cure a narcissist. Any narcissist that has gone into any psychologist office has probably effectively, been able to wrap their finger even around some of the best psychologists in terms of the level of manipulation. They may have even had the psychologist be sympathetic to them. They may have even been able to convince others that they're the true victims in these situations, and it's really a scary. This is a high level. This is a high level demon in operation. At least one, I know this type of stuff is difficult for people to swallow. It's very difficult for me to I know it's difficult to swallow because I mean, you couldn't even get me to a few years ago, if anybody even mentioned these types of things, I would just be like, that person, they got some serious problems. Like, I'd be like, that person needs deliverance, because the fact that they're even talking in those ways, and I get it. But until we're prepared to keep our eyes open, if you guys, whoever is looking at this, I don't care who you are. If you're being honest with yourself, you just look around. You've got to know that there's so much disorder in this world. And I mean, you can look on a global level, you can look on a national level, you can look on a community level, you can look on a provincial, state, community, family, you know, or you can even go even closer and just look at yourself, and you can see there's some disorder. I'm not interested. I'm not talking about the persona that you're able to give to others. I'm not talking about the front. I'm talking about when you are by yourself and it's just you and you. And maybe you and you and you. Anyways, but when you're by yourself, I'm gonna show you something. Just bear with me. Just bear with me for a moment. So as part of my work, for those of you who don't know, I was led to start an organization called Rise and Shine. And Rise and Shine is it's a personal development sort of initiative about waking up and rising above certain challenges and growing into a wisdom that when we allow our light to shine, it sort of invites others to do the same thing. And it was born at a time when I was not fully walking with the Lord in that respect. So there was a lot of more psychological based things that went into it, and understandings and applications. But it really and truly was, you know, I've got, you know, my literature and things like that I can refer to, but it came from the heart. So I'm just going to speak really and truly where it was actually born from, because that is the truth. And it was born from a burden that was on my heart, and a level of connectedness that I had, an understanding that there are so many people out there who are suffering. They are suffering because of a variety of different things. And if only if only they knew the truth, if only they understood the truth, if only they didn't believe the lies, that they could be free. And they could be liberated, and they could rise above these things. A lot of the times we are so stuck in this concentrated place because we're believing lies that have been fed to us by society, by ourselves in different cases, because of circumstances, quite frankly, because of a society of so many narcissists, you know. Of course, you know I've got another name for them. But it's the truth. And if they could only understand that, that there has been, you know, this, I'm going to go so far as to say agenda, even to keep them down, because somebody's benefiting from you being down in some way. I mean, it goes down to even just we can go down to, let's take the bully dynamic at school, preschool. And at preschool, you've got the bully. Where'd the bully come from? And we can talk about these kind of things for days, but you've got the bully. And then you've got little Johnny, okay, who's being bullied by this bully. We'll call the bully Biff. I got that from, if you guys remember back in the 80s. I don't know why, when I think of bully, that just came to my mind. That's the bully from, what was that? Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. So Biff. So you've got Biff the bully, and he's bullying Johnny. this is the playground, you know? So Johnny is broken down. Johnny is afraid. Johnny doesn't understand why this is happening. He's powerless to this bully, you know, who's big and scary, and this bully is probably have a lot of other people who are also afraid of him, so they support him. And I mean, I'm saying this from the school ground perspective, but we need to understand we're seeing this on a macro level. We're seeing this on a grand scale throughout our lives and in different ways. But let's go down. I'm bringing it down to childhood to show that this is something that exists. And like I said, we can all talk about where it came from. And it cannot just be explained through behavior, which is what psychologists are limited to. It could never be explained away. The behavior can be understood on some levels, but it could never be explained away, and it could never be cured through the discipline of psychology. So here we've got Biff, the bully, pouncing on poor little Johnny. Biff is stealing Johnny's food. Biff is making Johnny do whatever. He's kicking Johnny here and there. He's just squashing him. And all the while, over time, little Johnny is his spirit is being broken down. His spirit's being broken down. So while this deficiency is taking place in little Johnny, somebody else is benefiting. There's a padding or an addition that is being had by who? The bully, Biff. Biff is getting the benefit of his bullying from Johnny, and Johnny's the one who's suffering. Well, that's really the play and the dynamic. That's the exchange. You know, there are those in the New Age. I talked about the dangers of the New Age understanding, because they limit you. There's things that can be learned in any discipline, but if you're not careful, and you can get caught and you can get sucked into a lie through there, which really and truly the whole agenda of that is for lying. So it gives you enough truth to keep you locked and to keep you there, but really the agenda has always been to lead you down a path and a lie and to keep you there. But there's an exchange that's happening. You know, little Johnny is giving up his power to Biff without him realizing it, because maybe he doesn't know how else. Maybe he doesn't have the Lord or the understanding of that. Maybe he doesn't have it, so he's just feeling powerless. So in that way, he's giving up unwittingly, unknowingly, his power in that regard to Biff, and Biff is taking it, and Biff is benefiting. Biff may be getting some free lunches. Biff is feeling powerful. This is what happens. So Rise and Shine was born out of, you know, and like I said, I was that person that really stood up for those bullies, you know, or rather stood up for those underdogs. There was something just innately in me that when it came to justice and integrity and what was fair, I always had that sense in me from as far back as I can possibly remember. So even in situations when I was bullied, you know, some of us are bullied right in our own homes, you know, right there in our own homes. We don't have to leave. We don't have to get to the playground, because there's bullying that's actually occurring from right there within our own homes. Some of us are being bullied by our siblings. Some of us are being bullied by our parents. And without options and understandings, we are just stuck. And it has an effect on us emotionally, psychologically, mentally, on various different levels. And until we get the understanding, until we understand some of these lies about ourselves and these things, they become calcified and they become hardened. And it's very difficult for us to break free from them, even well into our adult lives. So many of us are living out of these things without even understanding. But then the effect, everything has cause and effect. We're feeling the effects of it, and we just don't understand why, you know. So Rise and Shine was really born out of the Lord. I'm sorry. The Lord gifted me and blessed me with certain things. He's blessed you with those things as well. And when you come to him, you begin to really see those things become harvested out. You begin to really connect with those things, and you can step into those giftings a lot more boldly and with a lot more confidence. So when I did Rise and Shine, it was based on a knowing. It was based on the fact that I'd already had the evidence of these giftings in operation, because I was able to just help people wherever I went, and I just wanted to, and I was highly effective, you know. So I didn't know why, but I just knew that it was the greatest feeling in the world for me. Sorry. It was the greatest feeling in the world, and it still is, for me to see somebody who a broken bird. I'm going to use that term because I heard that term from somebody. There was an appointment that I sat in with not too long ago. And the person used the term of, not to me, but I've always seen you as a broken bird. And when I heard that, they weren't saying it to me, but when I heard that, I was like, wow, you know, that's what it is the Lord has, when I see broken birds, you see beyond their brokenness, and you see them in flight. You're able to see them in full flight. And so you're now commissioned with the task of stepping in to try to help them to mend their wing, to mend that wing so that they can fly. So this is really and truly where Rise and Shine was what it was born out of. I didn't know that there was a major missing piece that needed to come into this full plan that I had, and that it was actually going to be rooted in ministry. It's ministry. So there is the professional practice of it, let's say, but then there's also the ministry element, which meant I needed to get closer to the Lord. So I had to go through some things. I truly did. But what I wanted to show you was, if I can find it here, one of the things that I had developed as part of the program, and it's been very effective with some past clients, is I created, for those of you who don't know, but my business card, if I can bring it out, is this. So that's Rise and Shine. Basically, it says, you know, at the back of it, seriously, how you see yourself really matters, and it does. How you see yourself really matters. And in any case, so what I did is I created what I called the it's my personal business card, and basically there's some certain sayings on here that that if we were to that I use, and it's highly effective, but it was kind of like, imagine if we were honest. So we've got our business cards. We go to these networking events. We hand our business cards to each other. We read it. Oh, you're an architect. Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're a lawyer. Oh, you're, you know, a real estate agent. Nice to meet you, and this and that. And that's basically how we present ourselves. So we use these cards to say, this is, you know, this is who I am. But I was challenged, you know, it came in my heart to say, wait a second, what if we were honest? What if we were actually honest, and we, instead of the professional business card, we used what I've now have as called the personal business card? And if we were honest, and what it says is, what's the worst that could happen if we were to reveal those not so comfortable truths about ourselves? Okay, so this is basically how that looks. And it's basically, you know, my personal business card is a tool created by Kristine Sebastian, president of Rise and Shine. It's really to help people. Anyways, so what I'll do when I'm sitting in front of a client, for instance, is I can quickly assess sort of where they are, and after having a, you know, some discussion, I can sort of assess where they are, and then I hand them one of these business cards, and it's, what if you were to give this to somebody to say that this is the card that represents you? And when they read it, for instance, this one, which says, so let's suppose we get a real estate agent, they give you a card at a networking event, and that's it. And then they go home, and they're by themselves, and they lie on their bed with their box of Haagen-Dazs ice cream while they watch a movie after they've put their professional face on. But the card that would really represent what is going on in the soul of them, is going on with them really. What if it were this? And I don't know if those of you can see it. It might be backwards. But what it says is, I am so, my name, you know, is Jane Doe. I am so desperately lonely. Would you be willing to bare yourself to a stranger that way? Would you be willing to be honest and let people see and know what is the worst that could happen if you were to be honest? Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody goes and does this necessarily, but the question is, are you willing to even give yourself a personal business card? Are you willing to be honest with yourself in terms of where you are? And then once you are, well, first let's just stop there. Are you willing to be honest with yourself about what's really going on within you? This here is a taste of sort of the application that takes place, some of the application according to how the Lord leads me and how I'm led in any sort of client interaction. But it challenges the person to go into that space that they really use their professional business cards to keep them away from. So all these other distractions to keep them away from. But we have to be willing to go into those darker places. And when I say darker places, those places that have been untouched within ourselves, we have to be willing to go there. Because whether you realize it or not, you are operating out of there at varying times. I understand why people don't want to go there. Because there's nothing, particularly those who do not have the Lord. Because there is, what's the point? I get it. What's the point in going somewhere, digging up some old things, getting in touch with some old traumatic pains that you've managed to find a way to bury? I get this. When no one's giving you a solution on how to heal that. So what is the point? It's like you've spent so much time being able to find a place to keep it contained in. And in some cases, some of you have been able to do this for decades. So what is the point? I get it. Look, as a matter of fact, you know what, people who don't know the Lord, don't do it. Keep it where you've managed to contain it. Because you're right. Why relive that when when this world can give you no relief from it? What they'll do is they'll corral you into, I don't know. I'm talking about true relief. I'm not trying to knock other disciplines. I'm not trying to knock, the counselors, and they're doing major, wonderful work. There are spirit-led people who are led to be counselors. There are Christ-centered people who go into those professions, and they're able to to go beyond what the professional boundaries will allow them to do, and the Lord is actually working through those people. So I'm not here to knock them. Understand that. There's a huge respect that I have for information and for understanding of things. But the true healer and the true counselor is Christ. And that is where your true healing comes from. That is where the true healing comes from. I know this. And I'll say it a different way for those of you who maybe have an issue with that right now, because maybe you haven't come that far in your walk. I get it. But the true healing then comes in truth. In the truth. I know that to be Christ, so I got to say it. I got to represent, and I always will. But what he shows me is that who he is. It's the name is one thing. You know, Jesus, the name is one thing. And there's power in that. I'm not taking nothing away from that. But what he does is what makes the difference. The power in the truth truly sets you free. The truth shall set you free. So Rise and Shine, as I said, it was born out of that. I'm grateful for it. But like I said, there was a missing piece, and that is in understanding that what was working, the effective agent, let's say, that was working all the while, it was not me. I mean, it was in the sense that I was obedient to that call, but I now understand what that is, and that was the important piece that I needed, so that all the glory can go to the Lord. All the glory goes to God. At the end of the day, this is about moving people into that space of truth, to be liberated from the lies and the deception, so that they can understand and know who the Lord is, who this living God is, and to know that, you know, it's not, it can't be about the, see, the problem that I have with the counseling sort of, or the discipline, not discipline, psychiatric is that there forms, there's always a dependency of some sort that you will have to then, that will be established. You'll either be dependent on the counselor themselves, or the doctor, the psychologist themselves, which then helps to create a sort of ego, narcissistic sort of dynamic even within them. Trust me, there are many egocentric doctors and counselors out there, and you know, I think it's because they believe themselves to be God, because they've been able to heal and people come to them. We got to be so careful if you don't understand why that is happening, and the system is designed in such a way to perpetuate that and to keep that sort of going and moving. So you will either be dependent on the doctor themselves, or the medication, the drugs that they will give you. And understand that a lot of the times the medication and the drugs that they give you, they alter your state of mind. They alter your state of being, which in some cases can render you unable to be able to receive that leading of the Lord, which is so essential in your healing. Again, I'm not knocking it. The Lord has given us knowledge and understanding in all of those places. So I'm claiming all of it for the Lord. I'm claiming all of those disciplines to the Lord. But what I'm saying is a lot of people aren't using it. They're pirating it and taking it, but they're not giving it the credit where it's due, because the Lord will use those frameworks, but at the end of the day, it is Him that does the healing. And until and unless people are pointing the direction to Him, I don't care, even medical doctors, you go into a hospital and you're on life support. Listen, God's the one that gives you life. He's the creator of life. He decides. So He might be leading that doctor's hand to, get the scalpel and do this and that. But if you live, that's because of the hand of God. And that doesn't mean that you don't say thank you to that doctor, because that doctor, yes, God was using that doctor in that place, but you better not forget God. He's the one that gives you that life. He's the one that breathed that life into you. And he's the one that said, there's more time. So you can give the doctor the credit. Be thankful for any doctor that is instrumental in any form of healing. But it is God. It is the Lord who decides if you are going to keep going. And this is the missing piece in all of these professions. This is what is missing. The glory has not been given to the Lord. And he ain't happy about that, you know. But he loves us enough to be able to create opportunities for us to see, for our eyes to become open, because he understands that there has been a major plan that has been executed for a long time in and around our lives to ensure that we never were able to see, so that our eyes would be turned. But he always sends someone. He always sends someone. He's done this all the way through the Bible by the use of the prophets, to give you a lifeline, to let you know that there is a lifeline, to let you know what the true lifeline is. In my opinion, this world has been run by a whole gang, a whole pack of narcissists and wolves and who have really been just trying to steal the glory of the Lord, so that you never understand who this Lord is. But the good news is, like I said, is that there are those of us who understand the truth of it, and we're now commissioned at this particular time to be able to spread what that is, and to spread the gospel of salvation. You know, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to have salvation without the truth. So everything happens in stages. So you have to sort of come into the truth. You have to come into the knowledge of truth, so that you can then understand that that leads to your salvation. Like I said, there's, anyways, I just have here written different languages and verbiage depending on the discipline that we're using. So we can call things different things. We can call, you know, even when I use the term narcissist, I'm using that. I'm sort of switching gears, because I know that on a societal or a mainstream sort of level, people understand that language. But I also, like I said, I when we go into the spiritual realm of things, we're talking demons, like straight up. You know, and I'm very comfortable talking about that now, because I have an acute understanding about I have acute understanding about it by way of knowing the truth, which is the Lord. So through his leading, I've been made to see and understand that which most of us would really want to turn a blind eye to and just be ignorant to. Look, I remember one of the things that I recall for years, when I first, and I don't know when it was, I imagine it was when I was 7 years old that I first, or let's put it this way, my first memory of having an awareness that there is more than meets the eye to this world must have been when I was 7. And I've shared a little bit of this, so I'm not going to go into it, except for this to sort of lay a foundation of where I'm going. Because like I said, at 7 years old, my question and my heart poured out to the Lord with the question of, Lord, please show me what this life is all about. I don't know what precipitated that question, except that was the time. And after I've done some research and I've gone back and I've asked questions of different people who I was around that time, you know, to certain things that I was able to remember, I must have known, and it must have come into my awareness that there is more here than meets the eye. I don't know what I saw. I don't know but I guess what it was is what I had experienced was far bigger, for lack of a better term, than this sort of linear sort of thing that was presented to me as life. So there was more life that wasn't being talked about, that wasn't, you know, the family dinner type discussions that weren't talked over the table or in the family room, that I was aware that must have been going on that nobody was talking about. So I don't know. I've come to learn. I was exposed to certain things. I've come to learn that. So it makes sort of sense to me that I might have experienced things back as early as 7 years old. But when I asked the question of the Lord, you know, please show me what life is all about. I don't even know where I was going with that. I kind of do, but I kind of don't. Like I said, I must have been aware of some things, and I do believe that the Lord must have put it in my heart to ask the question. I have here different languages and verbiage depending on the discipline. So I think I wrote that down because I was speaking about our being comfortable, mainstream being comfortable with using terms like, you know, behavioral type of terms and clinical diagnosis of things, you know, whether they're talking about, you know, anyways, narcissism. We'll stick with the narcissism aspect of it. Anyways, I think I'm just going to leave that for now because I've just sort of, but I guess my point is I understand. Oh, this is where it was. Thank you, Lord. Throughout my walk, and particularly I recall as early as even my late 20s, because of certain things that I had experienced, things that I believe were outside sort of interference, and also just my own natural love for wanting to know the truth and just being inclined in that direction. But I do recall going to the Lord and saying, Lord, look, if there's things that I need to know and understand, I do want to know them. I you know, in terms of, you know, if there's spiritual things even that exist, I want to know them. But, you know, do it, please do it at a pace that and at a level of exposure that I can handle, and that will not make me run away, you know. And our Lord, he's wonderful, and he's very patient, and I see now, I see now so much in retrospect of how he held me throughout this entire walk. He was always there holding me through, and even when I didn't know he was there, he was there. And this is what I really want you all to know, is that even if you don't know he is there, he is there. He's there. Now, if you outright reject him, that's a whole other story. I can't even speak to a heart that deliberately just knows who this God is and just rejects him and says no, and I just want money, power, greed, all these other things that some hearts are really, really driven by. I just have nothing to say because I have no, I guess conceptually I can sort of, I just have no understanding. I just don't. I just don't. So I can't even go there. I'm reminded of, I used to watch that show Criminal Minds. I used to watch it like going back, particularly maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or however long ago. And I used to watch that show like religiously. And even watching that program, I know there was the watcher of it, but I was studying it. I was studying a lot of the things that they were learning. Most often than not, they were trying to catch a psychopath, a narcissist of some sort, and at a varying degree. But I'll never forget an episode, and I referenced this in a video that I might have done over a year or so ago. I don't know, but I remember after they finished catching this psychopath that they had been tracking for a long time. I can't remember the names of the characters, but one of them said to, I want to at least remember one of the names. Anyways, one of them said to the other, they were on the plane ride coming home. They could relax now. They had done their work. They were commissioned to do this task. They did it. They successfully succeeded. And then now they're coming home. And one of them said to the other, you have to wonder, we get so close to these narcissists. We are so close to these psychopaths. And in order for us to be able to catch them, on some level, we have to understand them. We got to get close enough to understand them without ourselves getting sucked into their world, And then I remember she asked, like, do you ever wonder if we get like affected, And it's true for those people who are with the Lord. The thing is when you're walking with Christ, you do get to see all the beauties and all the beautiful things that are Christ is heaven. You get to see that. You get to understand the beauty of love at a level that is so profound, and the strength of truth that is so powerful. And the understanding of justice and order, and you just see it, and you're able to understand it. But you're also, because he is using you in this earthly realm, this natural realm, you're also made to see what he sees, which is the ugly in full force. You really see a lot of the ugly as well. There are those who see the ugly, but they don't have the Lord. But when you have the Lord, when you see the ugly, he shields you and protects you because you're submitting to him and you're just trusting him. And it's actually him that is showing you. I know I'm going into some places. Some people might call it mystical. It's not mystical. This is spiritual warfare. Mystical would be without Christ. So it's what I'm talking about, but it's without Christ. So trust, and it's got a whole different energy to it. Trust me when I tell you that. With Christ, it's the salvation. So this is the thing that I wanted to say, is that when Jesus says he is the way, the truth, and the life, that is the difference. Which means that you can walk and you can march through any single place when you have the Lord, because you have now become an ambassador for him, and you have that pass to really go anywhere that he, because you're going not with an arrogance. You're not going on might. You're going on love and in truth. It's not about winning. because you know that it's already won in Christ. You're going in love and you're going in truth. You're going in obedience. You're going so that others may understand that same love and that same truth, and understand that they are loved. And when I say going, that means anywhere, you know. When you're going to work, when you're going anywhere, when you have the Lord with you, that is the difference. So it doesn't matter, you know, like I said, I mean, he has sent me into some places, into prisons, and it was, you know, even in dark places like that, you're not of the place, you're just in it. And you're seeing the amazing work that he's doing. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of one Dr. Michael Beckford, who has come into my life, and the Lord has used him greatly in order of being that exhorter for me. There's been times that have just been some low times, and I know that it is the Lord at work, because he has used Pastor, he's now Dr. Beckford, in my life in many ways, in a prophetic way, where he has just said, call Kristine, you know, and it was at the right time. It was the time that I just needed to hear the word that he had to say, and I'm so grateful to him. But he recently sent me, just this week, a message informing me that through this ministry that he has, or that he's operating through, they went to one of the prisons, and in that prison, I need to say this, because this is how the Lord moves, and I'm just so grateful that he shared this with me, and it made my day. They went to the prisons. A group of 17 people went to the prisons, and it went to a prison with, you know, murderers, rapists, you know, drug dealers. And in that prison, at that sitting, 53 inmates gave their life to the Lord. 53 gave their life to the Lord. 17 of them, was it 17? 21, it was either 17 or 21, were baptized. The officials, look at this, the officials at the prison, the wardens and the whatever security guards, they got a little children's pool, you know, those water pools, and they put water in it, and 20, I believe it was 21. I wish I could find that, but it was minimum 17. I know that, but I believe it was 21 of them were baptized right there in the prison, of which he said 6 of them became Holy Ghost filled, and they spoke in tongues, and one of them even began to prophesy. So for those of you who do not see and are not understanding that the Lord is in full operation right now, and he is working, and he is using those willing souls, he is using those willing vessels to go and to do his work of healing, of deliverance, and of liberating and giving salvation, even in what we would consider to be those darkest places. Well, what I'm inviting you to is, I'm saying to you that even within yourself, you can go into those darkest places. I wouldn't advise you to do it without the Lord, mind you. I'm talking about the darkest places within you, because there's the external, and then there's the internal battle that is going on inside. So it is to be able, you can go to those places, but you got to do it with the Lord. You got to do it with Christ. Otherwise, you're just gonna be lost. So like I said, I'm not telling you to do it. Look, you can. You want one-on-one help? Call me. We can do some one-on-one, and we can get you there. But you need to understand, for me, I know where that comes from within me. That comes from the Lord, and that is the love of the Lord. And I got to give all the power and the glory. I got to give all the glory to God in that regard. But I'm going to tell you, like I said, is that any places that you need to go, it's got to be with the Lord. You can go into those dark places within yourself. but it's got to be with the Lord. I wouldn't suggest you do it. I wouldn't suggest you go and tap into some of those dark places, because you don't have a lifeline out. So you're just going to open up, I won't say Pandora's box, but yeah, for lack of a better term, Pandora's box. You're going to open up some old wounds without having a real solution. So you'll go into the medical system, or you'll go into the psychological system, and they will, they'll take you to the furthest extent within their capability. But it's not going to give you the true healing that you're going to need, which can only be done through deliverance, through healing, and through understanding, through truth. I'm not saying don't go, but I'm saying don't stop when you go there. If you don't already have the Lord, go. If you're getting help, good. That's great. But don't stop there, because your healing will never come from just that box alone. Like I said, you'll either just be put on medication, or you'll just be dependent on more sessions, with that professional. And they're doing great work. Like I said, they're doing great work, but they can only go so far, because they only have so far within the parameters that they can go. What I'm saying is, if you're there, stay, but you got to transcend that. And that only comes through the Spirit of the Lord. That is where your true healing comes from, because He is the true counselor. He's the true physician. He's the true healer. He is the true deliverer. There is hope for everybody out there. I don't care what situation you're in. I don't care what you're afflicted with. I don't care what the doctors told you have. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. We have to break through these molds. We have to break them off, because we get stuck. And so many of us have been stuck for so long. Why? Because like I said in that verse last week, Hosea 4:6, I believe it was, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And it's not your fault. It's not all your fault. Dr. Springett, God bless him, he said this even last week. It's not your fault. Not all. Look, I spoke about accountability. We have to take accountability for our parts, for the parts that we're playing. But to the extent that you have never been opened up to these things, all I'm saying is the knowledge is there. The knowledge is there for you to have. And it's available to everyone who wants it. To everyone. Jesus is the way. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is life. Understand this. There's 3 things He says that He is. I am the way. And He is. He doesn't lie. Watch what He says next. I am the truth. I am the way, the truth. Can't lie. There's no lie in that. There's no lie in truth. Now, there is some truth in lie. What I mean by that is, these systems will use the truth these systems of lies, they cloak themselves in some truth in order to attract you. So they'll have just enough truth that it will feel right for you, but the real heart of them is lies, So you just gotta really understand that. So Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and now watch this, the life. So if Jesus, He didn't say, I am a life, a way. He didn't say I'm a way, or I am a truth, or I am a life. No. He says, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. There's a huge difference. All the other ones, options. A way, a truth, a life. And this is what people say. Well, hey, there's, like, I'm sorry, but I heard Joel Osteen say this the other day. And I'm not here to knock anybody. I'm not here to say whatever, but I just know that it didn't really, I don't know. I know he said something, and I just know that it just didn't resonate with me. But he said, I heard him, he was on an interview, I believe, with Oprah Winfrey, and he said something like, I believe that Jesus is the way, but I believe there's many ways to Jesus. And, I mean, on some level it resonates, but it just, you know what? You got to have a conviction for Jesus. I don't care. You can't water things down, you know, and it gets me upset because there's almost like there's your personal agenda that is being sort of used. And then there's the personal agenda, but I'm going to use Jesus just so people can't say that I don't. And I might get some flack for this. I don't care. I don't care. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. You know what that means? If he is the life, then everything else is death. I believe Jesus. You know, I believe Christ. I am the way, the truth, the life. This is not a Baskin Robbins, you know, like you can pick any flavor. What you have to understand is all the flavors are in him. You know, he created all the flavors, but you got to choose him to be able to enjoy the benefits of all the true flavors, you know. But you can't cut him up into 31 different pieces and therefore say, okay, I'm going to take this one. It doesn't work like that. That's what people are trying to do. They're trying to say, okay, well, here's the truth. Let's cut it up in 31 different pieces. I'm just using this because it's Baskin Robbins for those of you who know. And now we can pick any one way. No, because any one way that you pick, you're missing all the 30 other aspects, necessary aspects of it. You only have 1 over 131, 1/31st of that truth, and you're trying to say that is enough, and it's not. Why? Because the other 30 maybe don't meet your lifestyle, or they don't fit into your agenda or into your plan of what you want. And you're distorting and defiling the truth in doing that. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I've been going for a long time. Without any, I guess I'm just going to keep going here. I do feel like I kind of, me and my coffee, my goodness. Anyways, we have to have enough faith, and this is something that I really need to go to the Lord with to get some more deeper understanding on, because it's not all clear. And yet I've written this down where it says enough faith to withstand the measures of doubt that would find their way in our lives. I don't know. I know I need to get more deeper in that, because somebody could argue and say, look, if you have faith, then there is not going to be any doubt at all. And I can understand that. So sometimes we're operating out of a place of logic and reasoning, and we got to be careful that we're not just sitting, that because 2 + 2 makes 4, we stop and say, well, this must be it. But sometimes the Lord tells us not to rest on our own understanding of things. Our own understanding will give us some understanding of things, but we have to ensure that and that we didn't limit ourselves to our own understanding, which can be very convincing, extremely convincing. Because again, if you got 2 and 2 makes 4, well, if you see 2 things and 2 things, you're going to say, well, it's 4. But you got to be careful, because that's, again, our own understanding. Revelation transcends our own understanding. Revelation takes our own understanding and breaks it all apart and just gives us a truth. Revelation is truth, which transcends our own understanding, no matter how convincing it may be. You know. So we got to be prepared to say, wait a second, maybe in some cases 2 and 2 don't make 4. I don't know how that works, but I know that my spirit has been conditioned enough to be able to accept the reality that in some cases 2 and 2 might not make 4. I know that sounds crazy. Remember I told you in the last session, you got to be crazy for the Lord or you're just plain crazy. Somebody would say, well, Kristine, of course 2 and 2 makes 4. What, are you crazy? Well, maybe I am. Because what I know is that there have been certain situations, many situations where the Lord has shown me that my understanding of things is 1. It's given me great understanding. But that when I look at it now through his lens and through his understanding, I'm actually seeing a lot more than what my understanding does. My understanding might give me a piece of the truth, but it's not representing the whole truth. So it's not to say that mine isn't that there's not some merit, so to speak, in what I've been able to figure out in using disciplines, using studies, using mathematics, whatever it is that the Lord has provided us, but that we have to be able to stop and say, wait a second, we got to yield and give to the Lord and say, okay, Lord, I've taken this to the extent that I can. Now you show me what you need me to see through your eyes that goes beyond any of our understandings. And that's revelation. That is the revelation that we receive when we're with the Lord. And then it's like, whew, that's when you just got to sit down and you're like, oh my God, like, whoa, like you truly are blown away. Sometimes I'm like out for the count all night, I just need some, because it's like, it just, and it's so, but yet it's so it's not igniting, it's just so invigorating too, because your eyes truly become open to these things. So I've written down here, enough faith to withstand the measures of doubt that can find their way in our lives. For any of you who maybe, like I said, I'm getting with this technology. Thank you for those who are watching and who are showing the support. I appreciate the support. I can't really see who's on or who's not at this particular time, just the way this is configured. But I do thank you for those who are tuning in and who are watching this. I will be able to see afterward if there's anything that's posted. But so I'm not ignoring anything that you're doing if you're doing anything. But anyway, so I'm just going to continue on here. So enough faith. I've written here, this was this morning, enough faith to withstand the measure of doubt that could find their way, that can find its way in our lives. What that is saying to me is that we have to ask the Lord. The faith comes from the Lord, okay? So it's not we have our own faith. The Lord gives us faith. But we have to be operating in enough faith, have enough faith that can withstand the measures of doubt that would find their way in our life. There's a lot of things that are going to come into our lives that are going to try to stumble us, that are going to try to make us doubt. The only way we have, the faith that we have has to exceed that. Like I said, I can hear some arguments already with people saying, well, it's a contradiction, Kristine. This is where our own, that's a contradiction, because if you have faith, then you're just not going to have doubt. Well, I don't know. That's not true. What I'm saying is that you can have the faith, but doubt is still going to be trying to get in the way. So it's your faith that's going to get you through that doubt, absolutely. But you're still going to be met with things. You're going to be met with obstacles. You're going to be met with things. Why? Because the devil is throwing them at you all the time to try to stop you from getting to where you're supposed to get, or to stop you from being able to carry out the leading that the Lord is giving you to do, or the commission or the task that the Lord is telling you to do. But anyways, that was something I still have to, anybody who can offer maybe some insight on that and wants to offer some to help me in understanding that a little bit more, to flesh that out a little bit, I would really love it, because I know I wrote this down, but I at face value, it just makes sense, right? You have to have enough faith to withstand the measures of doubt that would find their way. But I believe there's more in that, and I believe more is going to come through from that. I believe more revelation is going to come through with that. I don't believe that that's all that the Lord wants me to see in that. I believe there's more. But at face value, it's a great word. It's a great message in and of itself. So enough faith to withstand the measures of doubt that would find their way in our lives. We have to. Oh, okay. So last week I showed you guys this I'm gonna call it, it's an art sort of creative thing that I recently discovered to be another, call it gift maybe, that the Lord has blessed me with in my life. I'm not, as many of you know, that I do music, I write songs, play the guitar, that kind of stuff, but recently I discovered an ability or something, it's a leading in terms of creating some art pieces that I wear around my neck. And last week I showed you one that was called, it was called In His Hands. For those of you who, I wonder if I could, hold on a second. I'm going to see if I can get that one. Just as a reminder. Yeah, it's in here. So I keep them in these little gift boxes, but basically I showed all of you the one last week where it was called In His Hands, and it's an art collection that is really growing now, that I've called it 1611. Those of you know there is a Bible that's called 1611, but that is not how it was inspired, but it's just interesting. But it comes from Ezekiel 1611, and where I will read it. Bear with me here. Ezekiel 16:11 says here, I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put bracelets upon thy hands, and a chain on thy neck. For the most part, they're made out of clay. This is called In His Hands, and as you can see, there's 1611 on it. Each piece has at least one mustard seed. At least one mustard seed. We talk about faith. It's interesting that we were just talking about faith. Enough faith to withstand the measures of doubt that would find their way in our lives. Each piece has a mustard seed, but this is one, and I wear them according to their leading. They're just very interesting, and I just had some clay that and they just sort of, I don't know, these shapes just sort of take place. And so this is another one, and I'm going to tell you, I know there's a gentleman, that a brother in Christ, that I'm so grateful to have met, and I met him just over a year ago. I met him a year ago through, as you know, this show that I'm doing. It's coming to you through, obviously you guys know, through Rise and Shine, but through rc165fm.com, which is through Rivers of Living Water, which is led by Apostle and Dr. Robert Springett. Right now I'm broadcasting from my home location, but you'll see me going back and forth, broadcasting right there from Rivers, the hub of the church, as well as the college. But last year there was the graduation, and the Lord blessed me to be able to, I guess you would call it, to MC it, to be able to call out the names of those who are graduating. I thank Apostle for that really special opportunity, to be able to do that and to be a part of such an amazing event. I mean, these are students. Look, I'm not taking anything away from those of you who are getting your education through the education system, the different universities, but there's something to be said for those who are really studying the Word of God and are applying themselves to be able to get certificates and degrees and their bachelor's, master's degrees, doctorate degrees in the Word of God, in biblical studies, in theology. And I had the really unique opportunity of not only just witnessing it, but being a part of it in such an amazing front seat way, to be able to meet and greet the graduates of that year. And one of the graduates that I met is a man, a very spirited, highly spirited man who loves the Lord so much. And his name, he came all the way from St. Kitts, and his name is Kenville Richardson. So I met him at the graduation, and it's really great. We've been able to do a little bit of fellowship through then, and he was also back again last year. And one of the things that I find is that the Lord oftentimes will have you meet certain people who, when you connect with them, they bring about a certain inspiration. So through that meeting, when the Lord says where 2 and 3 are gathered, he's there. So he shows up in certain places where, because of that space that is created from those places where he is, you're now receiving revelation that you would not have had if you had not had that meeting, that you would not have received if you had not been, right there. So one of the things that I can say with Kenville is Brother Kenville, as well as some other, a handful of people that I've come to really appreciate in my walk with the Lord, is that there's always a word of some sort that gets received with some of these people, and he just happens to be one. So I really thank the Lord for him. He's an exhorter of the word, like he loves the word. He's an exhorter of people. He loves for the word to be spread. For those of you who know him, he loves the word to be spread, and he spreads the word no matter what vehicle or vessel is using it and doing it. He just loves the word. He recognizes it, and he will spread it. So he just, you see him, there's various different prophets or ministers, and he's constantly just sharing, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. So God bless you, Kenville, in that effort that you're doing. But he was able to graduate, and he's continuing in his studies in from what I understand, in his master's. But one of the things that he had said to me, and I was really, really grateful, is in a message that he said, is that, and I was just honored with it, is that, he likened me at the particular time to Deborah in the Bible. And those of you who know who Deborah is in the Bible, she was a woman who, she was a judge, she did a lot of judging, and things like that. And she led, an army, to victory. And, a very strong woman, a very, very, very strong woman, and soldier in the army of the Lord. And I was really grateful for that. So shortly after that, it's funny, I was, and he doesn't even know this, but I'm glad to be able to share this, is that this is another piece. And this piece that it just sort of created itself. I'm going to bring it closer, but the name of this is Deborah. And for those of you who can see, I don't know if you can see, but this is, the clay work, and it says 1611 on it, but it's sort of inspired by military in terms of the green and the metals, and there's some feminine aspects with, like, a little bead of pink and a rose thing. But then there's this, which is the metal sword, and then of course you turn it to the back, and there's I don't know, I find this one fascinating. And then of course there's the mustard seed right there as well. So for those of you who can see, I'm just going to show you, but there's just these little, I don't know how to explain it. There's these pieces that I'm just, so I've made about 9 so far. I don't know, they're just coming, I guess. But like I said, they're called 1611. So I promise to share that with you if I'm wearing them. I don't wear them every day, but it depends on how I'm led, or what's going on. So I'm glad, I'm happy to be able to share it with you. I cannot believe the time. I just cannot believe the time. I swear to you, I feel like I just sat down, and I'll be honest, I was when I first sat down today, I had nothing. Like, I'm like, I have no material to work through. I have nothing. Like, literally, I'm talking about, here it was like even 11:30 this morning, 12 o'clock, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to be speaking about. And then it eventually came. So I'm going to be talking more about narcissism. I know I am. It's a very, very popular topic right now, but there's not so much of the spiritual understanding that is being given. So there's a lot of people talking about narcissism, but they're talking about it from a psychological lens, or through a psychological lens and through a psychological understanding, which is great. That's where I learned a lot. I learned so much about it through that very thing. So like I said, I'm not knocking it at all. I'm grateful for all that I've learned, and the ways in which where the Lord led me to learn these things. But as with everything, unless it takes you to truth, you still got a ways to go. Unless it's leading you to the truth, you still have a ways to go. So that's sort of where I can see me speaking more about this topic, and allowing the Lord to lead you into that understanding. So I just want to thank the Lord right now. I just want to thank you, Lord, for all that you're doing, and for those who you're leading to this program. I'm calling this it's like a rinsing program, where to be washed, for the lies to be washed away, for the truth to be able to wash away, and to rinse us, of all of the lies that we've been exposed to, and that have really corrupted and damaged our lives, and damaged the hearts and the souls and the minds of people. This is now about restoration. It's about restoration, and it's about reunion, and bringing people closer to you, and bringing people closer to you through the truth, and through knowing and understanding the beauty of that truth and what that is, for them to be able to understand the extent of your love and what that means for a life. It means everything. So I want to thank you, Lord. I want to thank you for the sacrifice that you made by offering up your Son, and for the willingness that your word had to be able to come and be that sacrifice for us. I thank you. It's amazing. I just thank you for that. It's hard to believe that that we mean that much to you, and that we are worth it for you to have made that type of sacrifice for us. But I'm glad. I'm glad for a couple of things. I'm glad that you did, and I thank you so much. But I'm so grateful that I've come into the knowing of the profoundness of that sacrifice, and the truth that lives in that. And then into the hope and the salvation that is offered because of the resurrection. You are life. It was through death, but you are life. So, yes, you died for us, but you are the way, the truth, and the life. And you have offered us that life by just trusting you and receiving you. And I receive you, and I trust you, and I thank you for all that you're doing, and for now how you have commissioned me with the task, with whatever, and the tasks within the task, which is your task. And I thank you. And I'm grateful. So I just ask that you bless all those who are listening, and continue to send those who you need to hear this message this way. And yes, bless the hearts and the minds in Jesus' name. I pray these things, and I thank you, Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. So, wow. Yeah, I just, it really and truly is a personal walk that we begin to have with the Lord, and it's a beautiful one. I mentioned in that prayer about tasks. I realize that I am becoming very, very, very task driven. And there's two different types of people. There's people who are like people driven in terms of relationships and things like that. And then there's task driven. And I've always been people driven. I know that on some level, but now what I'm realizing is that I'm becoming extremely task driven. So when you've been connected to your purpose for what it is, you realize that in order for that purpose to be carried out, there are certain tasks that you're going to have to do. There are certain structures that are going to have to be put in place in order for you to be able to carry through, in order for the Spirit of the Lord to be able to move through whatever framework it is. You are going to be responsible. You are going to be tasked or challenged to carry out certain tasks in order to strengthen whatever infrastructure that you have to get certain things done. And this is what I'm realizing is that, and I love it. I love it. I'm discovering another side of the Lord that he's helping in terms of like he's strengthening a certain aspect of me that was lacking, that I needed to be strengthened, because everything that I would do before would just sort of fall apart, because they were great in terms of the intentions and whatnot, but it would just kind of, wither, because it didn't have the right infrastructure or the right support or whatever it was. So now I'm being I'm seeing the importance of task and having that sense of order and structure, which is really, really big. And I know, again, Dr. Springett speaks highly about order and how important it is that once you have the order. For those of you who weren't able to see the interview with him, this is what he was speaking about, which is foundation and order. So yes, I'm becoming very task driven in conjunction with my love, for just the fluidity of things as well, and which is just the Spirit of the Lord connecting and relationships and all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. This is I'm seeing the work in progress. I'm seeing the results of it, and it's quite interesting to see. It's quite a blessing. Part of that, and I have here establishing your boundaries, part of that is establishing boundaries. Part of that is once you've gone through it. I was so susceptible to emotions. Like the other thing I have here is being addicted to emotions. So many of us are addicted. We don't even realize how vulnerable and susceptible we are to just being sucked. It's almost like for some reason I just got this vision of quicksand, and thank you, Lord. So it's as if like emotions it's like a pool of quicksand. And the minute we go in, we just get sucked in. And unless we understand how to get out, but we just get so sucked in, and then we get so overwhelmed, and and the emotions can take us from here to there. It's like quicksand. Don't ever step into quicksand unless you have a branch of a tree or some kind of anchor, because you will just get sucked right under. So you have to have that anchor. You have to have something that you can leverage off of, so that the force of these things the current is not just going to suck you under. And that is the problem that a lot of us have faced. That was a problem that I faced, and the Lord just helped me to strengthen that, and understanding that emotions are there as part of our human experience, but it's not to overtake us. Now the Lord uses my emotions to help me understand things and to help me understand and to connect. So it's emotions are very important, but they can't override, because then they become more like a cancer that takes over your life. So you really have to use when I say use, allow the Lord to be able to help you to get those things in check so that you can function and operate effectively. So that he can trust you to not get swept under, you know? One of the ways we do this is by establishing boundaries. There's many other ways, but right now, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to speak briefly on that, which is just really establishing your boundaries and reinforcing those boundaries. It's very, very important. You have to use a great deal of censorship. You have to decide what it is you're going to allow to come within your sphere, within your boundaries and those parameters. I spoke last week about osmosis versus the one door, the one trap door, the one door trap. And again, just briefly, I spoke about how osmosis is really the exercise of, not the exercise, but the occurrence of there being this vessel or this cell, and in this context being you, allowing things to pass in and out according to a certain balance, according to, to achieve a certain equilibrium in, call it what some might say, the natural order of things. But when you're walking with this walk with the Lord, you actually have to not allow this free flying osmosis to just occur at will. It has to be, you have to establish your boundaries. What are you going to be allowing in? And what has to be out? Once it's out, you need to develop a mechanism which keeps it out and only allows the good stuff in. So you have to establish your boundaries. You have to discriminate, so to speak. And you have to have the level of conviction to be able to do it. And you really just have to not care what anybody thinks in that regard. Establish your boundaries. Recently, like I'm going to give you an example. Like, I don't know. I said this somewhere before. I don't even know where it was. I don't know if it was talking to somebody on the phone. I don't know where it was. But for instance, there are certain people who are just addicted to the news. They are addicted to the news. And if we understand this news, so let's just take, I'm going to take CNN because I was addicted to CNN at one time. When I say addicted, I mean, look, nobody, when Obama was running for president the first time, I mean, I could have been a CNN commentator. I was that much. It was like constant. I could not get enough. It was just, but again, there was an interest in there that kept and held my attention. And as a result of being so addicted, I was also exposed to everything else that CNN decided to put on and to put on as well. So all of the negativity that was going on in the world, I mean, you were just seeing, it was on loop. It was on loop. It was on loop. It was on loop. It was truly a loop. It was becoming like, when some people say like a mantra, so to speak, it was just a loop of all of this negativity that was just coming. And we have to be really, really careful, because when there's negativity that you are allowing, again, we talk about that osmosis. I wish I had a ball. Well, okay. I've got a globe. So here's a globe. We'll look at this as being you. You. Okay? I don't know if this is the right analogy to use, but anyways, I could use this. But so this is the cell or you, and when something hits you that is negative, it's a shock to your system. It's something new. It's something, not pleasant. It's one thing that it hits you once. But what happens is that once you've been exposed to it once, it's a shock. You know, let's think about the time when all this stuff was going on. Not that I don't even want to give it airtime, I'll be honest with you. I just don't. And so I'm going to just choose wisely of what example I'm going to use. No, I'm not even going to be specific. All right? So, but I'm going to say, with all the negatives, any of you, when I'm speaking about this, with all the negative things that are going on in the world, you only have to see it or know about it one time. The minute you start inundating yourself with these images and these things where you're just constantly glued to it, you become desensitized almost to it, because now think about the first time you saw that horrific thing and what it did to you. Think about the first time. I'm gonna use this example. I remember being younger, and when all that stuff was going on about Paul Bernardo and that woman, you know, it was or even worse, there was Jeffrey Dahmer. I was horrified. Like, it was horrifying. It's still horrifying when you think about it. But imagine now you're seeing these images. Now those things are less shocking to our systems. We've developed a tolerance. We still know that it's terrible, but it doesn't have the same impact on us when we hear it. We'll still shake our head and we're appalled, and that's true, but it doesn't have the same impact that it once did. We've almost developed we've become almost zombie-like to these things, where we just now can hear them and it's like nothing. Well, that's by design too, because this constant inundation of all of these negative things prepares us in a certain way. It conditions us to be able to develop almost, you know, a tolerance to these things entering our systems, and the effect that has on who we are, you know, on our consciousness, on our beings. It's very, very, very dangerous. So for me, I've really been cut off in a lot of ways. I mean, in terms of I don't watch. I receive things as I need to. I hear about them. People are talking about them. So anything that's big and anything that is worth whatever, I hear about through people at church, through colleagues, through whoever it is, and that's enough, because I know I can filter out through word of mouth. I'm going to hear about what I need to hear about. You know, I'm not in politics, so I don't have to be in the political arena to be watching CNN, to also then be forced fed all of these other negative things that they decide has to be a part of my system. I say no to that. I say no, absolutely not. It's not happening. And I actually don't even watch TV. I don't even have a functioning TV for 2 years. I go to YouTube and I select what I need to watch. I'll see things along the way that are going on, or I'll seek more information around certain current affairs that I think that are pertinent to what it is I need to do. So it's about being discriminate. You do not have to be a slave to the media. You shouldn't be a slave to anything except for the Lord, but you do not have to be a slave to anything. You have to be careful of what you are putting in your system. You know, you have to develop that one trap door to only allow that which is going to edify you and that which is going to keep you informed just enough that you're not naive, but not more than that. But not more than that. You have to establish your boundaries. So recently, to give you an example, I had to say to a friend of mine that I've known for a number of years, they know that I've been walking with the Lord, and you get all these things. People will send you things on, whether it's Facebook or on WhatsApp, and this particular person, would send certain things that might have some, comedic component to it, but it might also have a sexual sort of component to it or a vulgar component to it that I don't want. So I'd rather do without the comedic element if it means that I am now, it's the word I'm going to use. I'm going to use a hard word right now. Just can't figure out which one it is. Assaulted. That's what I'm going to call it. And somebody might say, oh, that's extreme. Come on, I just sent you a joke. Like, it's a joke. Can you get over yourself? And this is what people will try to tell you. It's a joke, But here's the thing. In order for me to receive the joke, I also now have to be exposed to these other things that I don't want anything to do with. And unless I open my mouth, I didn't ask for the joke. I don't want the joke. There's all kinds of jokes. When I want a joke, I can go and find a joke. I can find a joke that's going to be dressed up the way I need it to be. That's going to be, that's not going to necessarily assault my system with other things that I don't want and that I'm choosing not to have. You know, and you have to be able to have that level of conviction to say, no, I don't want that. And you're not being a prude. Look, I can be down to earth. I can talk, but it's understanding that your boundaries have to be established, that you don't want to develop any sort of, it's not about an insulation. It's about, again, discrimination. You're discriminating. You know what's out there. You know, I can roll with the best of them with certain things. I'm not, you know, it's just, I don't want to be, the minute you allow and you continue, the person wasn't wrong for sending it to me, because why? I always allowed things like that before. So I'm not knocking them. They're sending it because they know, you know, I'd get a laugh out of it. And it was hilarious. I gotta be honest, you know. And actually, if I'm being really honest, what they sent wasn't so bad, but they had sent things in the past that the last two things they sent, I had to make that decision. And I said, and I sent the message, I didn't open up the attachments, I didn't look at them, but I said, and I had to let them know, I didn't look at them because, and I have to let you know that I have to ask you to not send me anything that has any form of sexual or anything like that. It's neither wanted nor welcomed. And he said, it doesn't. He said, these ones actually don't. And I remember saying, you know, can I trust you? And he said, yes. And I was like, I left it for a few days. You know what I mean? And then I did open it, and actually those two, they were fine. But I'm glad that I took the initiative to say and to set that boundary, because now they know. And they said to me, you know, I wouldn't send you anything. And that's great. At least now they know. And I can hold them accountable to it. And then if they do, I can either decide to delete them because, you know, they clearly are not respecting my boundaries, and that's it. I'm not going to be angry. I think they're, you know, I love the person, you know, but they maybe have not taken this particular leap where I have, and that's fine. But we have to understand that we get to, you know, as Donald Trump, I'm not saying anything about that one way or the other, but as Donald Trump decides that he's going to, you know, close the borders on what comes into the nation of the United States, we have to regard ourselves similar as a nation, and we get to decide what comes into our borders. So we can actually take a lesson from the president, to be honest with you, in that we can decide. I'm not saying that I agree or not. But I will say that there are some spiritual principles that are being applied. Whether they're being applied with the right intention and the right spirit remains to be seen. And it's very arguable. But I will say this, there is, as it relates to me, my own self, I'm exercising that same application, which is to say, I get to decide what comes into the borders of the parameters that I'm operating in. And we have to, each one of us has to begin to exercise that same ability to do that. And when we're doing it with the Spirit of the Lord, when we are doing it in the spirit of, in the interest of truth and of love and of protection and guarding ourselves, you're just in the right place. I can't speak for the intention of anybody else. I can't speak for the intention of anybody else, and so therefore I won't. The only thing I can do is I can pray to God, and I can pray that God, because it doesn't matter what anybody's intention is, as long as you know that the Lord, He's got this. Anything that is happening, the Lord is allowing it. Remember that. So the Lord is either ordaining it, He's the one who's commissioning it, or He is allowing it for God knows literally what reason. So don't worry. God's got this. Just make sure that you are on the right path and you are on the right track. Make sure that you are aligned with Him, because He's got this. He's allowing it. I'm just reminded of Job. When Job was going through everything that he went through in the Bible, as it's accounted for in the Bible, when he was going through everything that he was going through, When everything was taken from him, anybody, including Job himself, would have wondered, why is this happening? Where is God in this, you know? But God allowed that. We don't understand why. Remember I told you, 2 plus 2 doesn't always make 4. At least not the 4 that we understand. But the Lord allowed it. So whatever evils even that are being done to you, when you are with the Lord and you know that you are walking with him, whatever evils that are being done to you or that you are being exposed to, that's a hard statement I'm making. I'm not saying you caused it. And I wouldn't say you caused it. And I wouldn't say that you're at fault. Because I remember Job. And I remember Job being a man who was upright with the Lord. And if you can say you're upright with the Lord and you are a Job, and anything that is happening to you, then all I can say is, it's all right. The Lord has allowed it for whatever reason. And he hasn't forgotten about you, and you are not forsaken. And as we know, as it ended up with Job in the end, Job was rewarded tenfold. I don't know how many fold, I can't recall, but it was like tremendously for his faith and his obedience and for never turning his back on the Lord. And the Lord was glorified. The Lord was glorified through Job's obedience and through Job's faith. And that is what is being called upon each and every one of us, that no matter what it is you are going through, do not turn your back on the Lord. Remain steadfast and stay in faith. I'm not a preacher, you know. I'm just being obedient. And I'm offering and providing a practical application to this walk with the Lord. I believe that is, I'm so glad that that just came through, because as I'm beginning to understand what it is this ministry is that I'm doing, that really just came out of my mouth. So I want to thank the Lord for that. It's providing practical application to your walk with the Lord at a time such as this. So anyways, my time is up. Thank you all for watching, who's watched and who's, liked it and commented. My name again, Kristine, Lara, Sebastian. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to send me an email, if you need some help even from a client base, as I said, I do the one-on-one sessions. Call me, get in touch with me. You can either call, there's, for any kind of rise and shine elements, you can contact me at Kristine, which is K-R-I-S. I'll actually post it at the bottom. I haven't been doing that. I need to start doing that, making myself maybe more accessible in that way. It's not just about delivering the information, but it's also following up too. So you can reach me either at Kristine, Kristine at riseandshine.me. Or just toughtalkslive@gmail.com. For those of you who heard me say 2 weeks ago that I was giving myself 2 weeks to get my computer up and running so I can start doing things, my Mac computer was crashed. I couldn't update my website. So like I said, my website, even if you go to it, it doesn't reflect as much God in it that I need it to, because my walk began 2 years ago. My really fervent, determined, committed, sold out walk for the Lord began 2 years ago, and that was when my computer crashed. So I haven't been able to update my professional website yet, but there is still a lot of very good and useful information available there. There's some audio tapes that are recordings that I've done to help you sort of get over some troubled times that have been very, very useful. So please go to it. But it is very outdated. It may have a little bit of it might have a bit of a new age kind of feel to it. I don't want it to, but not new age. It's not like a mystical in that way. But I just know that I've been more I've been in the Word for 2 years, you understand? So, and until I get access to it. So I said I was going to give myself a deadline of 2 weeks to get my computer set up where I could go in and then change and do my website. I'm going to probably need some help with that. So I'm just asking the Lord to send the help and the support that I need for this ministry to continue and to move and whatnot. But that will be done. But I did meet with somebody yesterday who's looking into the computer situation for me. I'm excited about it because now I can start recording some songs of some of the most beautiful songs I've been writing, but they're now songs for the Lord. Songs for the Lord, and I'm so happy. You know, those of you know that I've been doing music for a very, very long time, and now what's coming through is just songs to worship the Lord with. So I'm happy. So I'm getting excited because now I can actually set up my studio again to record and to produce and to record some songs that I'm excited to be able to do. So anyways, it's all in my head. It's all in my heart. Anyways, God bless you. And as I said, it is, as I always say, it is your time to rise and shine, all for the glory of God. God bless you. Have a great week, and feel free to reach out anytime. God bless.